Hi there, travel lovers. Is your trusted cruise and Tauck tour and safari expert Shawn Power here. Now you'll notice when I just introduced myself, I mentioned and safari expert, and that's what I want to talk to you about today is Africa safaris. This is probably one of my favorite things to talk about with my clients. This is literally like an epic bucket list trip for most people. I've been to Africa twice myself. I have done a South Africa river cruise and safari. I've also done the East Africa land tour with Tauck, where we also went to see the gorillas and stuff. And these were literally some of the best trips of my life. And there's not one of my clients who doesn't say the same thing. So when people plan these trips, I mean, they're kind of epic journeys they've dreamt about their whole lives. You know, going to see elephants in the wild and rhinos and going to see buffalo, leopards, lions. I mean, this is stuff you dream about. And you know what happens a lot of times when people look at this for the first time ever, they get a little bit of sticker shock because these are probably some of the most expensive trips you'll ever do. So for a lot of people, it ends up being some of the trips that they do maybe later in life. You know, when they're doing better financially, maybe they're retired, they're kind of living off the fruits of their labor. But the point is, a lot of people dream about these for a long time. So when they look, like I said, they're expensive. But the other thing that happens when they look at these safaris is they usually get overwhelmed with all the choices. I mean, people look at Africa and they're like, I don't know what to do. There's South Africa, there's East Africa, there's, land tours, there's some that include river cruises, there's options to go with gorillas and some options to go on trains and, you name it, there's everything you can imagine. So it gets very overwhelming and very confusing for a lot of people. But I like to try to break it down as simple as possible because, again, I've done a couple of these, so I've seen it with my own eyes. And I've been doing this for almost 20 years now, so I've literally booked these tours for dozens and dozens and dozens and dozens of my clients. So I know what people like, I know what they're looking for, I know the essentials that they want to see. They don't really at all, need to get overwhelmed at all with all the choices because really I try to break it down to just, a few choices myself. So how I like to break it down is, number one, I say to people, do you want to do a river cruise or not? And usually it comes down to, do you have the money for it or not? So let me explain what I mean by that. Now, there's only really one company who does this, and it's AmaWaterways, AmaWaterways. Now, if you've checked out my Europe River Cruise blog post, yeah, it's on my website, I say how Tauck is the best river cruise company in Europe, and that's true. They are rated much higher than AmaWaterways. But in Africa, and I did go with AmaWaterways, and I've also been with Ama in Europe, in Africa, Ama's a very different product. They're just like Tauck. They include everything. Pretty much besides gratuities for the guides. Same as Tauck. Tauck doesn't include gratuities for the guides in Africa. But the point is, it's a very high-end experience at great hotels. They have the best tour guides along the way. They include things like all the transfers, a lot of alcohol in some of the meals along the way and stuff. So when I say AmaWaterways, don't be scared to go with them in Africa thinking, well, Shawn said in Europe they're the second best, not the best. That's all true, but this is Africa. And Ama and Tauck are neck and neck, just as good as each other in Africa. But here's the one difference. Ama offers a river cruise option for 4 nights on the Chobe River. Tauck does not. So this is really what I tell people is like, decide if you want to do the river cruise or not. Now, when I went to South Africa for my first trip, I did go with AmaWaterways and I did the river cruise. Now again, it was a 14-night trip. It was like 2 weeks long, but the river cruise was only 4 nights of it. So it wasn't a major part of it. But it was like an extra $5,000 a person, and some dates I think are as high as $6,000 an extra. Now, a lot of my clients are, they're not at all, money focused. It doesn't matter what the bottom line price is. It really is about the value, the experience they're getting. That's just my personal clientele. So when I explain this to people, I do have more people go on Ama than don't, than with Tauck, because they just want that experience. So like I tell people, look, if you got the extra 5 or 6 grand per person, on top of the other 12 grand or 13 grand just to go in the first place, it's worth it because the river cruise is very unique. We were in the middle of nowhere when we were on the Chobe River. I remember one night, we used to sleep with the windows open every night in our room. And again, this is like a small 14-room boat. I mean, so I always say ship, but this is a boat. I mean, it's small, and 28 people, 14 rooms, and you're out in the middle of nowhere. We'd sleep with the window open just to kind of hear the sounds. Like one night we literally heard a lion make a kill, and we know that's what it was because we saw it the next day when we went out on the smaller boats to check it out. I mean, just experiences like that were like once in a lifetime. We got so close, like we'd be just cruising down the river, and elephants be walking along the side. We saw some other animals. We saw lots of giraffes and different things. But we literally saw these things like so close to the boat. And then we would get off this small boat onto the smaller boats and we go very close to a lot of these animals. We saw crocodiles. We saw elephants that were like over our shoulder. Of course, it was all safe. These guides know, these animals inside out. They know how to be safe and stuff. But the point is, it was such an extreme experience. It was absolutely beautiful. And we got to like visit like a local village. We went to Chobe National Park. It was just a wonderful time. So there was things that we saw on the river cruise that we didn't on the land safari. Because when you go with and you do this, you're not only going to do a river safari, you will do a land safari after as well. Whereas with Tauck, you'll skip the river and you'll just do the land. So again, look, if it doesn't work budget-wise, it's okay. You're still going to have an amazing experience going with Tauck without the river cruise. But again, most of my clients do the river cruise with Ama just because they want that extra experience, because they're going all that way and spending all that money. They figure, hey, let's just do it right. So right away, you got to ask yourself, do I want the river cruise? Do I not want the river cruise? And again, you're looking at about $5,000 to $6,000 extra a person. So it definitely adds up, but well worth it if that's in your budget. So that's number one, river cruise or no river cruise. Number two, do you want to go to South Africa? Do you want to go to East Africa? Now, here's how I explain it, because again, I've done both. If you're all about the animals, you just want to see as many animals as possible, you want to go to East Africa. When I was there with Tauck, I think it was like a year ago, I remember adding up the game drives, and I think we did 13 in less than 2 weeks. So it was like game drive, game drive, game drive. Everything we wanted to see, we saw, and we saw it plentiful. So we saw multiple, like things that I saw in South Africa one time, I saw multiple times in East. So East kind of almost gives you more opportunity for animal viewing, but it's not a diverse itinerary. It's all about the animal viewing. Yes, you go to different areas like the Serengeti, and you're in different, you're in Kenya and Tanzania, and depending if you do Rwanda or not, which I'll explain in a minute. But the point is, you go to different countries and you go to different game reserves, and you do the different drives, but you're seeing, animals all the time, and it's a fabulous experience. Now, South Africa is more of it's a diverse experience. So what I mean by it is, like, when we started off in Cape Town, we spent 3 days there. Cape Town's a beautiful little place. Now, don't get me wrong, it's not a place you want to explore on your own. I mean, South Africa has its challenges, when it comes to just, touring on your own as a tourist. It's totally safe when you go with the safari groups and stuff. But the point is, when you go with a company like Ama or Tauck, you're staying right in the heart of Cape Town in the tourist area called I think it's the Vic and Anthony's or Waterfront or Vic and Albert or something like that. But the point is that just spending a few days there is fabulous. You get to go up to Table Mountain, you see views of this, gorgeous city. We went out to, I can't remember what the island's name was. It was where Nelson Mandela was. I know I'm saying that wrong. I know what's wrong right now. But anyway, we went out there to see where he was imprisoned. Some people went off and did a wine tour who, weren't as interested in that. We went to the, what is it called? The Cape of Good Hope, which is the most southerly, most point in Africa. So again, we had a few days there, just fabulous, getting to see that region. And then we flew and we got on the Chobe River for 4 nights. But then when we left the Chobe River, we went to Victoria Falls, where we saw one of the most spectacular waterfalls in the world. And I've been to Niagara Falls and other falls, which are fabulous, but Victoria Falls was absolutely fabulous as well. We went to Johannesburg, which is the capital of South Africa. We went to Soweto, which is one of the, we'll call it the biggest slums in the world. But again, you go and, these are not people who, it's not as bad as it sounds. They make it sound so bad on T V and stuff. But when you go see these people, you see the smiles on their faces. You see how they work as a community. You've got I think it was 50 families were sharing one water source. But again, they do it very, like in our part of the world, we could be so, I think back when we were all young, I mean, everyone had open doors and was, helping everyone. But these days we're all on our phones, and I feel like we're all a little bit cut off from each other. We're not as helpful, and, we're not as kind, and we're not as patient. But over there, it just felt like the old times. Now, again, they don't have very much, but they just seemed happy. And so just seeing that with your own eyes was absolutely fabulous. And they were so welcoming to show us around their community. And it was great. So what I liked, and then after that, we then went to a place called Kruger National Park, and we basically did a land safari. And these were some of the most gorgeous villages you'll ever stay in. And again, you see lots of animals. You're in these open jeeps driving around to see the elephants, the leopards, the lions, and everything else. It's a fabulous experience. So again, between Cape Town, the river cruise, Victoria Falls, Johannesburg, and Kruger National Park, it was a very diverse itinerary. Now that was with Ama. With Tauck, it's almost the same trip, just take out the river cruise. So again, you'll see a lot of different things, but in East Africa, animals, 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 animals. So like I said, only you can answer what's more interesting for you. Personally, I love them both. And a lot of my clients go back multiple times. They do South 1 year, they might go back. I think I went back 5 years later. I've even had people do it on one trip. Even when I was in East Africa last year, it wasn't my client, but one of the couples in the group, they had just come from South Africa with Tauck, and they flew up and they did the East Africa with Tauck. So that's another option as well, is to just do it all. But again, if you want to choose one or the other, more diverse South Africa, more animals, East Africa. Also, I don't know if this matters or not. Some people just, they envision being in these open air vehicles. Well, East Africa is very dusty when you're in the Serengeti and a lot of these areas. So the vehicles are closed. Now, don't get me wrong, you have the open roof and you can open the windows and get great pictures, but you're closing all that while you're driving. And a lot of times you can't even close it all. You are a mess. I mean, it was unbelievable. And I tell people, don't go out and buy all the new stuff. You're going to be a mess. Whereas it's not like that in South Africa when you're out in Kruger National Park. Yeah, you're driving over dirt roads and stuff, but for whatever reason, I think also as well, it's because you don't have as many vehicles. Like in South Africa, they're private reserves. I think we might have had like 6 or 10 vehicles driving around this huge space to see the animals. I remember in Ngorongoro, I think crater, if I'm pronouncing that right, in East Africa, I think there was I counted over 100 vehicles just that were sitting around having lunch one day. So it's much busier in East Africa in some areas. They don't regulate it as much. So again, that's kicking up a lot of dust from all the cars as well. So I know that might be a bit too much info, but again, if you're a type of person that maybe you have some kind of breathing issues or whatever, and you can't be around dust all the time, you're going to get it in East Africa, not so much at all in South. So again, little things like that, just let myself, if I'm your travel agent, let me know. If you have any, questions about which may be better for you. If you've got your own travel agent, have a good talk with them, because the point is there's these little nuances that may make a difference. So in East Africa, you're in the enclosed vehicles. In South, the open air vehicles. Again, maybe that's a big deal to you, maybe it's not, but this is kind of what the differences are. Now, the other thing that I tell people that you got to decide is, do you want to go see the mountain gorillas in Rwanda or not? Again, for some people, this is simply a money thing. I think this costs like $9,000 to $10,000 more per person. It is not cheap at all. When I went to East Africa with Tauck, they have 2 trips. One is just Kenya, Tanzania, and then there's Kenya, Tanzania, and Rwanda, which goes for 3 days in Rwanda. And like I said, it adds $9,000 to $10,000 to the trip. Just to do the trek alone, I think they charge people like $1,500 a person or something like that. So the gorillas are literally, I've been all over the world, almost 100 countries. I've done almost 100 cruises. I've seen pretty much everything I've ever wanted to. And the gorillas was one of the most amazing things I've ever seen in my life. They take you so close to these beautiful creatures. No kidding, you'll see pictures and videos on my site. One came up and kind of brushed me, and I know that might sound crazy and not safe, but again, these trackers really know these animals well, and they know how to make sure that we're in positions that are not threatening to the animals. They know their patterns. I've never heard of anyone ever getting attacked or anything like that. But the point is to be in their presence and to have these gigantic creatures come and one gave me a little rub and stuff. I can promise you I knew that he was the boss that day. And to be around nature and it's just hard to explain what that's like. But it's not for everyone, because when I personally went that day, we had like an hour and a half trek to get there uphill. Now, don't get me wrong, we had all these trackers in front of us with their machetes cutting through the bush, but I mean, there was no proper trail. We were literally, you're following wild animals. So there's these trackers that go ahead and track them. Then they call back to the guides who are taking us to tell us how to get there. And we're cutting through, like I said, jungle with machetes. And it was a tough hike. This was not for everyone. I think there were 6 in my group and we all did fine, but a lot of the rest of our group would not have done fine. But at the same time, you let your Tauck director know, and also Ama offers this as well. So your Ama guide or whatnot. But the point is, let them know if you don't think you can do a heavy trek, because I know some people, they took them to an area where the gorillas were really close to the parking area. So I think they got out of their vehicle. They might have walked flat for 15 minutes and they saw gorillas. We hiked for an hour and a half to see gorillas. So the point is, the gorillas can be done by almost everyone, because even if you can't walk very well, you can literally pay porters to, maybe you don't want to do this, but they'll put you up on their shoulders, the 4 of them, with almost like the bamboo, and they'll have a chair and you just sit there kind of like King Tut, going up. Again, maybe that doesn't sound fun to you or it sounds embarrassing, but the point is you get the experience. So almost anyone can do this. So don't get freaked out by the word trek. Sometimes it's just a simple walk or a hike. And again, you can literally even be carried up. But the point is that when you go there, there's probably, I think it was at 15 different gorilla families, and they kind of know everyone's skill level because you've been with the Tauck group or Ama group for probably 2 weeks by then. They know who's who and they know where to put you, and they know, I was one of the younger people and I walk all over the place. I'm used to hiking. They set me off in the most difficult trek, and the other people who they knew couldn't go far were seeing it within 15 minutes. I showed up back to the hotel 2 hours later, or even longer than some people. So again, it's it's for everybody. But again, this is like an extra 9 to 10,000 a person just to do the gorillas. Is a very, very, very expensive add-on. So that's the three things that you got to ask yourself. Number one, do I want the river cruise or not? Number two, do I want East Africa or South Africa? Number three, do I want the gorillas or not? And then what I'm going to do, I'm going to put a link underneath this video because it's kind of hard to explain some of the itineraries. It's better to see them visually by clicking the links and going to the itinerary. So underneath this video, I've put together a really in-depth blog post on my website, which has links to the Ama option, the Tauck option, the one with the river cruise, without the river cruise, with the gorillas, without the gorillas. And I really think between this video and that blog post, you should easily be able to decide which of these options is best for you. Any questions at all? You'll probably have questions here for sure. Leave me a comment. I'd be happy to answer for you. Go to my website, send me a message. And if it's, if you're working with another travel agent, go talk to them and just let them know these few essentials, yes or no, what you do want included, what kind of budget you have, what you can add on, what you can't. And either way, even if you do the most basic, say 11-night experience without the gorillas, without the river cruise, I'm telling you, this will be a trip of a lifetime. Everyone who goes there just loves, loves, loves Africa safaris. Seeing things like lions and leopards and cheetahs, rhinos, zebra, hyenas. I can't even think, like everything you can imagine you get to see there. Some of the most beautiful sunsets you'll ever experience in your life because you're just out in the middle of nowhere. You're not in these big cities. When you go to these reserves, it's just a special experience. Sometimes they'll have breakfast on the reserve or maybe a drink at the end of the day. You'll have a picnic out in the middle of nowhere. It's just fabulous. So I really, really hope you get to experience an Africa safari yourself. If I can help you any more, let me know. And any feedback you give me after you've come home, I'd love to hear, because I know people are always excited, so I'd like to know how it was for you. Beyond that, I hope you got some really good value from this video. I hope you get to experience an Africa safari soon. We'll talk to you in the next video, and have a great day. Bye-bye.